James Robinson is the most brilliant man that ever lived. The most brilliant man that ever lived. Oh, no. There are some in here who want to argue that point. Some of you would like to say, no, I think Einstein was the most brilliant man that ever lived. And someone might say, no, I think Mozart was the most brilliant man that ever lived. And I'm sure somewhere here someone thinks it was Homer Simpson. I'm here to tell you that I believe James Robinson was the most brilliant man that ever lived. Mr. Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, there isn't anything you couldn't talk to James Robinson about. Philosophy, psychology, I spoke to James Robinson about anything and everything that ever came to my mind. I should let you know, my conversations with James Robinson occurred when I was around 5 or 6 years old. James Robinson was my grandfather. I remember sharing with my mom that I thought James Robinson was one of the most brilliant men that ever lived. And a perplexed look came on her face, and I had to inquire, Mom, what's the matter? She said, son, there's something I should tell you. Your grandfather was entirely illiterate. He couldn't read, he couldn't write. I should also share some more information with you about my mom. The story of my mom is what many people refer to as a typical immigrant story. She had a dream, and it was a dream that is pursued under the flag of the American dream. She had thought that by coming to this country, she could provide an opportunity for me, her only son, her youngest child, to have a future that deviated dramatically from our past. She'd hoped that I could go to high school, maybe even go to college, both of which came to fruition. And she made tremendous sacrifices in order to make that happen. My mother left an imprint on my life. No, my mother left a touch print on my life, a permanent imprint on my life of confirmation by sacrificing so much to confirm who she always thought I might one day be. James Robinson left a touch print on my life as well. You know, I had to think back. How did I come to the conclusion that James Robinson was the most brilliant man that ever lived? I probed my memory, and then I could recall on one of the occasions when we sat on the veranda of our Caribbean home looking off into the distance. On this particular occasion, we were watching them blast a road into the side of the mountain. And I, like many 5-year-olds would, just kept peppering him with question after question. Grandpa, why? Grandpa, why? Grandpa, why? Grandpa, why is it we see the explosion, but we don't hear it until seconds later? Grandpa, why? That's when I remembered. Every answer he ever gave me was the same set of sentences repeated over and over and over again. I would ask him, Grandpa, why? Grandpa, why? And he simply would respond, because the letter Y has a tail, and when you cut it off, you get the letter V. Well, Grandpa, why is the sky blue? Why do frogs hop? Because the letter Y has a tail, and when you cut it off, you get the letter V. He gave that answer to every question I ever had. James Robinson left a touch print on my life, not because of his brilliance. I came to realize it was because of the uninterrupted, dedicated time that he spent with me. He left a touch print of affirmation, affirming for me who I was. My mother, a touch print of confirmation, confirming for me who I could be. And then there's Mr. P. We call him Mr. P because we couldn't pronounce his last name in junior high school. I hadn't been in this country very long before I had Mr. P as my gym teacher. And he said, okay, class, let's go on outside. He took the class outside and he announced this. He said, we're now going to find out who the fastest person in the class is. I instinctively stooped down and started to untie my shoelaces. Mr. P inquired with some authority, Mr. Edwards, what are you doing? I looked up at him and I replied, me take my shoes off, man. Mr. P felt it necessary to insert some additional sentences. He said, Mr. Edwards, we have a policy here at the school, and that policy is that everyone in gym class must be wearing socks and shoes at all times. Well, I rose to my feet, ignorant of the hierarchy of the moment, and simply blurted out, well, how am I going to do the thing that man if you have to think about my foot? Translated, that means how am I to exceed the rate of my peers if I'm encumbered by these attachments on my lower extremities? I had always done everything barefoot. In Jamaica, we grew up barefoot. We ran track barefoot. We played soccer barefoot. So it was my firm belief that I could only run a race barefoot. I told you that my mother touched my life. I got home later that night. The school had already called to tell her that I'd argued with a teacher, and she touched me again. 2 days later, Mr. P pulled me aside in the hallway and said, "Mr. Edwards, I saw what you did in that gym class, and I have an opportunity for you. I'd like for you to come and train with the high school varsity track team." Mr. P saw something in me that I was fully incapable of seeing in myself. A kid who had been an outcast since the day he landed in this country, spit upon, beat upon, bullied to the max. In fact, at a time in my life when I didn't even really value life very much. And Mr. P saw something in me. He left a touch print on my life of acceleration, accelerating who I would become today. We all leave touch prints on the lives of those we come in contact with. A touch print is that thing that's left behind after every conversation, every relationship, every interaction. Some of them are positive and some of them can be negative. You can choose to leave a positive touch print. It's a choice that we can make to increase how many positive touch prints we make. Is it a touch print of acceleration? Is it a touch print of confirmation? Or is it a touch print of affirmation? What kind of a touch print will you choose to leave today? James Robinson was the most brilliant man that ever lived. Not because of what he knew, but because of what he left behind. Mr. Contest Master.